we're actually not talking about the real reason why the labor shortage is here, why it's so hard to fight for talent. There are other factors at play that I think we need to be aware of. For example, the birth rate here in Malaysia is low, is very low, and I think I've got an exercise to prove just how low it is. I want you to work with me for a second. I want you to think about your mother or your father, or I want you to think about your grandparents on either side of the family. So I want you to think about these 6 people. And I want you to think about which one of these 6 people had the most siblings, okay? And I want you to raise your hand nice and high if your parents or your grandparents with the most siblings, if they had 3 or more siblings. Raise those hands nice and high. Keep those hands nice and high. If they had 4 siblings, keep those hands nice and high. Remember, we're just talking about the parent or the grandparent with the most siblings. If they had 5, keep your hands up. 6, keep your hands up. 7, keep your hands up. 8, keep your hands up. 9, I'm putting my hand down. My grandmother was 8. 9, 10, look around. 11, woohoo, 12, 13, 14, 15, oh my gosh, 16. Okay, we've got a couple hands up. 17. I'm going to make the assumption that at this point you two are related. That's my guess. A reproduction. Does anyone have 17, 18 children? I don't think so. We're reproducing a little less than we ever have before. In fact, across the world, we're reproducing less and less and less. The next generation is quoting environmental change. They're quoting interest rates. They're quoting cost of living. You know, we're seeing that some countries right now are shrinking. Japan, China, not China yet, Germany is shrinking. We're seeing that some of these countries are projected to start to get smaller. So if we think that this war for talent right now is prominent here, yes, it is, and of course, around the world, it is too. We're seeing the brain drain, of course, is an issue, especially with remote and hybrid work being very prominent, nearly twice the average here as it is in other countries. Net immigration, or net migration, is lower than it's been in the past. We're seeing new business creation is up. We're seeing retirements are up. And the reason for this, especially with new business creation, is that the world around us is moving faster than it ever has before. Technology, as we know, is moving at a breakneck pace. The World Economic Forum says that we're entering the 4th industrial revolution. One where we're not moving steps forward anymore, we're moving exponential leaps. So think of the 18th century, think of the steam engine. Think of the 19th century, think of the assembly line. Think of the 20th century, think of early computing, early robotics. Now think of the 21st century, think of artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, a lot of the technology that's dominating our headlines today. Which, by the way, is only a tip of the iceberg to what we're going to see in the years and decades to come. The world is moving fast. The question is, just how fast is the world around us moving? I wanted to try and figure it out. I wanted to share with you today a theory that might help us wrap our head around just how fast the world is changing. And I found a theory that I wanted to share with you. This theory was coined way back in 1958 by a gentleman by the name of Buckminster Fuller. Buckminster Fuller was an economist, an engineer, and a social scientist trying to figure out just how fast does technology change? And does the world around us start to know a little bit more? And what he discovered was that before the year 1900, the amount of information that we had access to doubled nearly every 100 years. So from 1700 to 1800, the amount of information that we had access to doubled. And from 1800 to 1900, it doubled again. But interestingly enough, around the year 1900, what he discovered is that the time it took for information to double, well, it started to double at a half rate. So now it didn't take 100 years, it took 50. And then it took 25. And then it took 12 and a half. So from 1900 to 1950, the amount of information that we as a society knew doubled. And from 1950 to 75, it doubled again. From 75 to 88, it doubled again. From 88 to 93, it doubled again, and so on and so forth, till way back in 2020, IBM confirmed that because of the Internet of Things, this will lead to the doubling of knowledge every 12 hours. So if we think that the world is moving quickly now, just give it until, I don't know, tomorrow, and the world will be moving a lot faster. Perhaps this is why economic uncertainty around the world continues to increase. We're trying to keep up, we're trying to show up. And as a result, it's getting harder and harder. So that leaves us with a bit of a tough situation. If the future is indeed impossible to predict, which I think we can agree is true, if the talent shortage is here, and if the world keeps moving faster, how do we build incredible teams that can help us get to whatever the future of work looks like? That's really actually got me thinking. I think we've been asking the wrong question about the future of work. We've been asking, what does the future of work look like? And as we've noticed, well, I'm often quite wrong. I think the question that we should be asking instead is, how do we build an incredible team that will help us get to whatever the future of work looks like? That's what I've spent my time trying to figure out. I've surveyed tens of thousands of people now, worked with hundreds of category-leading companies, written a best-selling book on the topic, trying to figure out what is it that great leaders are doing that others aren't? What is it that great organizations are doing that others aren't? And what can we take away today, budget-free, that will allow us to build an incredible team that can thrive in whatever the future of work looks like? I've got some good news. It turns out that it comes down to 3 steps. 3 steps that we can all start to implement right here today before we leave. First, we have to build a deeper sense of trust with our team. Second, we have to be able to isolate and remove friction. And third, we have to create a culture of experimentation. After all, the world is moving faster now than it ever has before. It has to happen in this order, and we have to start with building a deep sense of trust, the foundation of every great, resilient, and innovative team.